All right, everyone, welcome back to the Ramped podcast. Today, I have an extra special guest with me. It is Kirsten Kuykendoll. Kirsten, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Danny. How are you?
I am doing well. I'm doing well. So I know we were chatting before, and you have a ton of thoughts on the future of work and how folks are getting involved in financial planning and a slew of other topics. I'm super excited to jump in with you on all of that. But before we get started, I do have to ask you, who is Kirsten Kuykendoll?
Yeah, thank you. So I'm a wife. I am a dog mom of two lovely dogs. I'm an aunt, friend, an ally. I'm a chronic self-reflector. So any kind of like personality test, I know who I am, for better for worse. And I'm an avid traveler, fashion lover, and a true crime aficionado. That's who Kirsten is.
Amazing. Well, true crime aficionado, we'll have to dive into what shows you're watching on a separate episode, an offshoot of the Ramp podcast. But I'm an aficionado of sorts myself, so I'm super interested to catch up after the session. But great to have you on. We are very excited to hear your perspective on everything. First question for you is when you're thinking through what the future of the workplace looks like, what does it actually look like as a primer? What does it look like? And what are the players? Where are we sitting, maybe physically and then even philosophically? And who's involved with all of the decision making?
Yeah. So, what I would say is for us at Fidelity and how we're thinking about it, we've really coined the phrase dynamic working as the future of work. It's really a hybrid approach in the way we think about it. And this means that, our employees they're going to spend some time in the office. They're going to spend some time at home, but the time in office is going to be fueled with individual growth and building relationships and working with peers as well as other connected business groups that are really going to be productive for them when they are in the office, but they're also going to be able to spend some time at home to really support their diverse both work and life needs. I know for myself, the days that I'm working at home tend to be a little bit heads down, kind of focused, less distractions except for the dog part, of course. And then when I'm in the office, I try to open up my time so I can actually walk the halls and connect with people that I maybe haven't seen in quite some time. So, our days on site have to be really intentional, and that's how we're really thinking about, the future of work. I would say also though that it really been built. Approach has been tested past several months and even quite frankly year, and really has been rooted in feedback from our employee base. So we've been listening to them intently throughout the pandemic and even before, collecting their feedback, asking what's working well, what they're worried about, what other stresses have come in. There's a lot of great things we've heard from them about commute-free days and, ability to do that heads down work, and also some of the well-being, impacts of being able to work from home. And we want to be able to support our employees at doing the best of both.
Yeah, it's a really good point and well thought through. And I know Fidelity has that perspective on it. I'm curious to know, and I'll give you some of my perspective on it. So I'm somebody who I graduated into the last great financial crisis. So around the 2007 through 2009 crash, I graduated in 2009. I am somebody who didn't know what I was getting into at all. I jumped into a startup at the time, Groupon, and I could not imagine my life without that early career experience sitting next to a bunch of colleagues who were around the same age as me, some with a little more experience, some with the same experience, and all of us just kind of in a room, ho humming together and really bouncing ideas and innovating together. Like, what are we going to do to replace that experience if we do commit long term to remote work? Which I think that's a trend.
Yeah. Yeah, first of all, that, kudos to you and so many other of your peers during that time frame that, hit a lot of folks, with many different challenges. And certainly what I think we've learned is that, there will continue to be challenges in this work world, things we haven't seen before. So I would say is we have to be intentional. So today's the last day of our 10-week internship for 1,000 plus of our interns across the firm. And we had intentional what we called connect weeks where the interns came in and got to meet each other in person. And some of them obviously weren't necessarily working in the same group or function, but it was just good to be with, peers and talk about what it means to work at a company during a summer and what they're learning about the corporate culture. And our associates who are starting out right after school or early in their career want the same thing. We heard a lot from employees during the pandemic where they said, I'm really missing being able to kind of turn around in my cube and ask a question or even benefit from, a within earshot conversation. So we have to really think about how to make that time in person really intentional. And then if you're just sitting in the office doing Zoom to Zoom to Zoom, that's not going to be beneficial for anyone. And so, I don't think we figured it all the way out just yet. And quite frankly, the way I think about it is we need each other, all of us as a community, to really kind of learn what works and what doesn't. And we have to be actively talking about both the good as well as the challenges.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Really good point. I think the future, in my perspective, I do feel like there's some sort of hybrid component, whether it's mandated or not, but some sort of hybrid component will probably exist, right? If you want an offshoot office, or if you have a place to go where you can collaborate with folks in office, that will likely be available. And I think folks are going to relax or be lax on the, hey, look, I'm just a more productive worker from home. Work and life is kind of blended for me over the last, 2, 5, whenever this ends, or if it ends years. So that's just how I work now. I gotta pick up the kids at 5. The commute is an hour for me. It just makes no sense anymore. So it will be really interesting to see how that trend flows. I think in your role, obviously, as a talent acquisition leader, I'm sure you hear these early career or even seasoned folks talk through those decisions. What are you hearing, and where do you think that trend is?
I mean, I think, there's there's been a lot out. Certain companies have said, this is their policy. We've done is really taken again a little bit of a test and learn approach because I think what we thought it would have been months and even a year ago is different than how we've shaped it today. So I think for us, it's been really good to be able to talk about it, and our recruiters are taking part in that early learning. So we don't actually want to tell someone what that flexible schedule looks like if we're not able to take advantage of it ourselves. So, we have some in time office time where we're spending time collaborating on, today's staffing challenges, but also using it to get together. So I had the opportunity to travel to North Carolina and our regional site there last week. And I got to meet so many people that were either new to the company since the pandemic, maybe new to talent acquisition, or I had been in a different role prior to the pandemic and didn't know these folks that are now on my team. I maybe saw them virtually, but there's just something special about being in person. So I think again, there's just a real opportunity for us to think through how to come together in this new way of working, as well as to shape what it will be. So we've been hearing from candidates. Obviously, they want to know precisely what it means. And what we've talked about is it may differ for each role. So over time, some roles that are, highly trained, or, maybe some of our, roles where there's a lot of on the job learning early on, it may be more beneficial to be in the office a little bit more early on when they join the company or new in a role than maybe if they've been in that role for a little bit longer. And so the point is to be upfront and transparent and to talk through what folks are worried about as well as what's important to them. Because I think we all have a little bit of a perception of what that looks and feels like based on, our own experience.
A really good point. And I think the thread that I'm pulling is that empathetic approach. Seems like you've thought through this quite sincerely too. Like, I do feel empathy has been at the forefront of our minds here at Ramped about, our existence. But I do feel like the winners of this, let's call it pandemic, post-pandemic era, have been folks who have really thought through how to acquire talent, empathy, and how to onboard and train and be thoughtful about the life cycle of talent as well. And it does sound like at Fidelity, especially specifically you too, you've thought through like, okay, you got to listen to what they're actually saying to us and really get get in it with them to figure out the right path forward. And that's really cool that you all are doing that. I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I would say there's also been some bright spots of COVID, which is sometimes hard to believe. So we actually were able to move our onboarding processes to, fully virtual right when the pandemic began. So we were able to shift to more of a 12 months guided digital experience that introduces our new employees to key resources, things like who is Fidelity? What do we do? Ways that they can get involved, leveraging career resources, tools to communicate with each other. We've paired them with peer buddies too. And so those are some things that, that we think will be here to stay. But, back to your point, I do think, we have a great honor and privilege in the talent acquisition function. How I talk about it with my team is, we truly are here to shape the future of Fidelity by attracting and cultivating and really placing the people who are going to build it. We've been an amazing organization full of innovation and incredibly stable for the last 75 years, and that history and that we want to really continue, and we want to find people who are really energized to help us build it for the
Yeah,
future.
I think that's really admirable. That purveyor of culture, making sure that there's a protected culture and that it's uplifting and inspiring for not only folks who are there, but folks who are coming in. I think that's very unique, and especially for some business the size of Fidelity, I think that's a really cool perspective, and good to know that businesses like yours are thinking through that as well. A lot of times, we have the early career perspective, but a lot of times folks are kind of disheartened by these larger recruiting initiatives, mostly because they hear so many rejections, but they don't really get to know the company that well. It sounds like you are doing a great job allowing this crew, allowing folks to get to know you right off the bat, and sharing those values with them throughout. We want to switch gears a little bit. So
Sure.
we are very much obsessing about a way that an early career person positions himself for not only today, but really the future and what that looks like. How do you think folks are doing it well today? And maybe what are some of the learnings that you can allow out for folks to kind of position themselves better? And where do you think that's going in the future?
I mean, I think about when I started my career, and I was a finance major mainly because a pre-med major didn't work out so well for me. And also because I really loved math,
Yep.
and I thought if I'm going to get into business, like finance and math was like a comfort zone for me. So, I was taking an approach early in my career of looking at a job as a very linear career path. It's kind of like you go to school or you get into the workforce, you just work incredibly hard, and good things will happen. And what I appreciate about the next generation of talent that's here is there's so much rich experiences and perspectives about the world and who they are and what they can contribute regardless of their major. And there's way more an approach towards wanting to work for a company that they admire, support, as well as want to contribute to. And so for me, I think about obviously you have to come in and do something you like, but also it's your first job is never your last job. And there's a lot of opportunity if you are really open to navigating. So, for me, I think about people who come in and really learn their job, take the time to do it well, kind of look upstream and downstream at where they get the work. Again, I'm a little bit of a process person, so that's probably, again, another comfort zone of mine, but I think that intellectual curiosity around where you're getting your work from, who you're passing your work to, and kind of thinking about that end-to-end big picture is what makes somebody, really successful. And then I think investing in yourself. I think I didn't do enough of that early on. I was super hungry and working really hard, but we really want people to come to Fidelity, for example, to build their career. This industry, and of course, companies like us, you have an opportunity to not just do finance, but to do technology and marketing and operations and HR and so many different things. So for me, I think it's really important to find a company that you value, they value you, and you really have an opportunity to learn and grow.
Yeah, really, really well spoken, really great thoughts. I'm a process person too, so I can totally get that. And a lot of times, recruiting processes are just that, like really process oriented, but need that extra little spark to get folks to even feel the love during the process. So they think good or bad outcome that this company is amazing, would be an amazing employer. It sounds like Fidelity is doing a lot of things to put folks in those seats. Do you have a question? As you mentioned something, we talk about it often, like those investments that early career professionals can make in themselves. What are a few things that you see really work well at Fidelity or even outside of Fidelity when an early career or even somebody in a new role invests in themselves? What are some things that they could do to boost that experience, boost their career path, boost, even the next 2, 3 years of their work environment?
Yeah. So, I think about, again, really, really learning your job. So take the time to talk to your peers, talk to your manager, again, really, and not just do it for doing its sake. So, really take time to understand the impact who your customer is and really try to walk in their shoes. I think also as you get that a little bit more under your belt or foundation laid, one thing that I found that was really important in early on in my career was reaching out to people and finding somebody I either admired, peer or a leader, and just ask for some time to get to know that and to connect dots. I typically found that, putting yourself out there was really hard. At least it was for me. I always felt like other people were busy and, they had a day job and they wouldn't necessarily, have time for me, or who was I to kind of ask of their valuable time. But what I found in that is I love making connections. I like meeting people, and it helped me kind of very early on understand some of the different dynamics that we have, at least at the firm, or different our operating model, right? With the type of businesses that we have, as well as just kind of get advice. What did you do starting out your career? What do you do now that interests you? How do you navigate this company? How do you navigate your career at this company? And the good thing about Fidelity is we really have an opportunity to have multiple career paths. So I myself have been here 16 years. So it's my sweet
Amazing.
16, which is just
Yeah.
bananas to say.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. I had like 5 different jobs. I myself, again, started in process improvement. I never thought I would be in HR, let alone leading TA. But after chatting with lots of people and doing a bunch of different things, I can see that TA in a lot of ways is like a general
Yeah,
manager of HR. It's the marketing of the firm and the company and our benefits. It's kind of the sales function of recruiters who are selling the job and selling the company. It's technology and projects and candidate experience and so many things. It's a huge machine in operations. I mean, we are hiring more people than we have in
crazy.
many, many years. And to do that, you really have to run a really strong business. So back to your question, I would say it's having the intellectual curiosity, taking the time to really invest in who you are in your career, but also, taking the time to ask others, what you could do to learn and grow. And then I think the last thing is always pay it forward. I mean, I try to do that too. I think, I think about all the people early on in my career that helped me and that really took the time for me. And I want to do the same for others, because had they said no, I don't know, it'd be a lot harder.
Yeah, that's great. Really actionable too. Something that I was very fortunate to have early in my career was the training program at Groupon was kind of just run you through the playbook, get you out on the phones ASAP. But the one thing that I remember really, really strongly is they encouraged you to reach out and even put you with other folks who had done it before, or even 6 months to a year ahead of you. Just let you sit next to them and hear their pitches, hear exactly how they do things, hear what they're saying, what they're not saying, the objections you face. And that was really influential in my early career. And then when folks came around and were hiring, I got the opportunity to like pay it back right away. And I think that part of the Groupon training program was really, really cool. So it resonates very strongly with me. I do have to ask though, did they give you a car for your sweet 16th birthday at Fidelity? It seems like now's the time.
No, no car, but, at 15 years, I got an
That's
extra
what I'm
week
talking about.
vacation, which due to COVID, I got to roll over, and I just came
Oh,
back from
nice.
Ireland, Paris, and London, so I guess
That
that's a
is
really
great.
great
That
thing.
is great. Okay, so the car is coming soon, and maybe at 18th or 21st. We'll see. So back to a little bit of the future of work discussion. I'm curious to know. So you've got a good swath, I think, of talent at Fidelity. It sounds like y'all are hiring aggressively still. When they come in, and I'm sure they're just, some may exclusively look at Fidelity, some, I imagine the vast majority are interviewing at tons of places. What are folks thinking of, I guess, on the company side or corporate side? Who do you think will be the winners in this future of work environment or when the future of work happens? And what will they do to differentiate themselves amongst each other?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think and I'm gonna answer it, and then I'm gonna listen to the podcast again, like, in 6 months and just see. And I think this world just continues to change so rapidly, and I think it tests us with what we thought we knew, or at least I'll speak for myself. So, things I thought, could never change or, very rarely change with great amounts of time or effort and energy have, shifted on a dime, and some for good and probably some for not good. So, I think the people and the companies that will win will be open to listening to and really to candidates, to their current employee base, to really thinking critically about how the world is changing and what's important to folks. So again, I think, I used to dread my commute. I didn't really have that much of a commute. It's like 25 minutes. It's not bad, but inevitably get stuck at a light, be frustrated, all these things. And now it's actually a welcome for me. I actually
Yeah,
get to listen
there we
to
go.
podcasts, and I get to listen to some music and get some downtime. So, all that to say, I think that a whole lot has been put and shifted in perspective. And, I think those that are open, those that are willing to change and evolve, the next generation of talent is very different than myself and even, my predecessors. And there's a lot that we can learn from each other to collectively shape the future of the way and of which we work, as well as how and where and all of that. So I'm sure there's so much that we can't even anticipate now that I get excited about, because it means that it keeps us on our toes. It keeps us, continually innovating. And I really hope and believe that Fidelity will be out there and really
Yeah, it's
differentiating
great.
ourselves.
It's good perspective. And I think you're right. I think it is, again, back to that thread in the beginning, but I think it is just listening, right? Like getting in it with the folks that are already in there and not shutting down ideas, even if today they don't sound like the right move. You never know what could happen in the future. And I agree with you. Like the way that we did work 10, 15 years ago is so different from what we're doing today. It's wild. So a lot of stuff I probably could have
That's very
expected, some like never would have thought of, but that's good perspective. Last question before we leave is, there's a lot of talk today, especially at Ramped. We focus on a lot of democratizing access to jobs, to learning about jobs, to interview processes. I definitely want to hear your perspective on it. What does democratization or access to different roles look like today? And where is that trend going? And who is innovating there as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, the way that what's really important is that our associate base really reflects our customer base. So we are really trying to bust myths that there's a place for, quite frankly, anyone who wants to be in financial services. Through the pandemic, at the beginning, when some of the service industries were laid off, we were able to recruit folks who are, in the hotel industry or hairstylists, because customer service
Yep.
really transcends many different companies and industries. I think if some of our research, quite frankly, has shown that, teenage girls are more likely than boys to say that investing feels, out of reach for them. And so we're doing a lot of things to reach deeper into future talent pools, for example, young women. So we've got some high school programs. So it's something we call Boundless, which is really, identifying and partnering with young women who identify as women in high school and college age females that are exploring opportunities in the financial industry. We also have, done some partnership with Invest in Girls. We also have really been successful in a resume and return to work program where we worked with, women who took a break in their careers and they were caretaking for their children or, elderly parents or just whatever the reason, want to get back into the workforce. And generally speaking, their resume having a break might not, bode as well for them. And so it's been really successful in us really having some resumers, we call them, back into the workforce, especially in some of our technology and operation spaces. So for us, it's really important. Women are a critical part of the workforce. And, back to your point, I think, for us, we're hoping to really have more young women see themselves in a financial services industry
It's
and
amazing.
company
It's
like
amazing.
Fidelity.
Very actionable. Love the programming. And I think you're right. You have to just be proactive with it too. Have to buy into the fact that it's happening, and you legitimately just have to take action against some of these trends you're seeing. And I think it sounds like you have and Fidelity has really put pen to paper on these initiatives and broken down some of these inherent biases or even like preconceived notions that exist in and outside of the workforce. So kudos to you on that, and a great place to wrap our discussion for today. Before I let you go, Kirsten, where can folks find you?
LinkedIn, definitely out there. Find me. I probably am the only Kirsten Kuykendoll out there. So hopefully easy to find.
Amazing. Well, thank you. Thank you. This has been a very, very thought provoking discussion. I know our audience is going to absolutely eat this one up. Kirsten, from the bottom of our hearts over here at RAMP, thank you so much. And we hope to see you again on the RAMP podcast.
Thank you, Danny.